Salut omnes, welcome to this video lesson just going over the content for the grammar review quiz for 1B. Alright, the first section is going to be the case uses or functions. So as you see here in the project review project from last year, so nominative is for subjects or for predicate nouns and adjectives, and genitive is for possessives or when you have of. So in the song we sing, genitive is for whose or of, right? So who does it belong to? Dative, to or for, that is, we translate it with the to or for prepositions. Accusative is for two things. In the song we sing goals and objects. A goal is where are you going to, so that's direction towards. And then object stands for direct objects here. So if I love you, you is the direct object of the verb. If I see Bob, Bob is the direct object of see, right? So accusative is for direct objects and direction towards. Ablative is probably the most complicated of the cases. There are really three main kinds of things. There's the where, okay, so ablative that tells where something is, or also can be where it is in time, so that could be when. So that's described by in, on, and at in English. And then there is the from type ablative. We say whence in the song, we say ablative tells where or whence. So where is again in, on, at. Whence is from a place, out of a place. And then finally the third type of ablative, which we don't sing in the song, but it is one of the ways ablative is used, is sort of the by or with ablative. So if we want to do it with three W's, we could say where, whence, and with, right? So where is something, that's in, on, at. Whence, that's from where, so that's the from type. And then with, like if I walk with speed, or if I hit somebody with a sword, right? Those type of expressions are also ablative. So again, this is the most complicated case. It does three basic things. All right, and then finally the vocative case. Vocative is for calling out, we sing in the song. It's for direct address. So when you talk to a person or a thing, so you talk to your friend, in Latin, amicus means male friend, but you say amice, because that's the vocative case when you're talking to him. All right, then the second thing on the grammar review quiz is you have three charts of noun endings to do. So for example, I might ask you to do the first declension, which is masculine or feminine. I might then ask you to do second neuter, and then maybe, I don't know, fourth masculine feminine, right? So the first masculine feminine, you can see on the chart here, right? It's the first one there in the red, and then the second masculine feminine is the next chart. Then you get the second neuter, then you get the third masculine feminine, third neuter, fourth masculine feminine, fourth neuter, and then finally the fifth masculine feminine. So all of those charts there, which are color coded so you know what goes with what, you're going to I will have a blank chart for you to fill them in. Again, there are 5 different declensions, and some of the declensions have a masculine feminine form, and then they have a neuter form. So if I count those all out, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 different charts, although there are only 5 numbers of the declensions. And again, that's because in second and in third and in fourth, you also have the neuter versions, which are slightly different. In the case of fourth, it's actually quite different. Now, one thing that I will point out here, y'all don't have to do any I-stem endings for your level. So when you get to the third, the I-stem endings are in parentheses, so just ignore the part that's in parentheses. All right, so again, you'll have 3 of those charts there. And then the next thing you have is a conjugation of one of these 5 verbs, amo, dokeo, mito, copio, audio, conjugation in both present tense and in imperfect tense. And you're going to have to do not only the normal active, but also the passive ending versions. So if I asked you to do amo, then you would have to do let's just show you the whole thing. So you would have to do all those forms that I highlighted. So amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatus, amant. That's the present active with the OST, MUSTS, NT endings. And then you're going to have to do the passive of that. Amor, amaris, amatur, amamer, amamini, amantur. That uses the passive endings. In our song we sing, aris, termer, many, enter are the passive endings. Okay, and then you also have to do the imperfect, which is the second column over there. In the active, it goes amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamas, amabatus, amabant. Amabant, rather. Now, if you'll notice, all of the imperfects have the BA before the ending. So you take the ama stem, you add the BA, then you add the ending. Now, for imperfect, instead of O, you're going to use M for the I ending. So it's not amabao, it's amabam. All right, and then in the passive, same deal. You still have the BA, but then you add the aris, termer, many enter. So you get amabar, amabaris, amabater, amabamer, amabamini, amabanter. So that's an example of one verb you might have to do. It could be any of the 5, though. So you might have to do all the forms of dokeo, which I just highlighted here. And notice the basic change there is that the stem of this verb has an E instead of an A. And you might have to do mito. Mito is one of the trickier ones, because if you look at it in the present tense, you get mito, mitis, mitit, mitimus, mititus, mitunt. So the first verb form there ends in O. Then you get is, it, imus, itis. But then the last one, instead of int, is unt. So that's what makes it a little trickier, the vowel changes in some of the third conjugation mito forms. Then you go to the passive of that, mitor, miteris. There's another weird thing. It's got an E instead of an I there. And that's because of the R changing the short I into a short E. So mitor, miteris, instead of mitiris, which you might expect. And then mititur, mitimer, mitimini, mitunter. Again, here for mitunter, you have the U instead of the I. Then you go over to the imperfect. You got mitebam, mitebas, mitebat, mitebamus, mitebatus, mitebant. Basically, it's working very similar to the dokeo forms up above. You have the long E, then you have the BA, then you have the ending. And then for the passive, you just change to aris, term, or mini enter, and you got it. Copio, the next one, which you might have, that one's very similar to the mito forms. In a couple places, it's got some extra I's in the singular side, or so not the singular, the present side. So you got copio, and then for the last one in the present active, you get copiunt, which is over to the side. This one didn't format quite right. And then, let's see, in the passive, copior, copior, coperis, capiter, capimer, capimini, capiunter. And when you switch to the imperfect, watch out. Any verb that has IO in the first form, so copio, audio, cupio, any verb like that, is going to have IE before the BA when you go to the imperfect tense. Remember, imperfect tense is past tense. So copie bomb, copie boss, copie bot, copie bombus, copie batus, copie bont. And then imperfect passive, all you got to do is change it to aris, term, or mini enter. Add those new endings and you got the passive. Okay, then the final one, audio. We just did copio, we looked at that. Audio is very similar, only the I is going to be long wherever it's allowed to be long. So thus, instead of audis, you get audis with the long I. Instead of audimus, you get audimus. And then auditus. In the passive, you get forms like audiris and auditor and audimony and audimer, all those kinds of forms there. Similarly, like copio, when you go over to the imperfect side, if you look at that column, you again get the I, long E, before the BA. So you're going to get audie bomb, audie boss, audie bot, audie bomus, audie botus, audie bot. And in the passive, just change to the passive endings. So audie bar, audie barus, audie botter, audie bomber, audie bomini, audie bont. Arister mermini enter. All right, so that gets us that. There's only one more section on the grammar review quiz, and that is the verbals. This includes imperatives, which are commands. It includes the present active participle, which is like Amon's loving or Doken's teaching. And then it also includes the active and passive present infinitives. Now, for this section, you not only have to make the Latin, but you also have to translate what it means. So I will give you a verb, either amo, amare, amawe, amatum, or mito, miteri, misi, misum, dokeo, dokere, doque, doctum, capio, capere, capi, captum, or audio, audire, audio, auditum. Now, one of those 5 verbs I will give you, and then you will give me the 5 forms required, and you'll translate each of them. So if I ask you to do amo, amare, you're going to give me ama, which means love, singular. That's the singular imperative. Then you'll give me amate, love, plural. That's the plural imperative. And again, imperative just means command. Then you're going to give me the present participle, amans. Amantis is the genitive. You really only have to give me the nominative there, but amans, amantis, and that means loving. Amare is the present active infinitive, and you need to say that means to love. Present passive infinitive, you just change the final E in amare to a long I, and you get amari, and that means to be loved. So those are the patterns that you typically see. And let's look at the next one, doke o dokere. So you get doke, teach, singular, dokete, teach, plural. And notice the singular imperative forms are normally made by going to the second principal part and taking off the RE. So in amo, amare, we go to amare, we take off the RE and we get ama for the singular imperative. For doko, dokere, we go to dokere and take off the RE and we get doke for the singular imperative. All right. Okay, then we get to the present active participle for dokeo, dokere, dokens. Now, sometimes some books will write a long mark on the E. It doesn't really matter to me whether you put a long mark on that E. Because of the 2 consonants following that syllable gets to be long anyhow. But dokens, and note again there, all we're doing basically is adding an NS to doke, right? We take off the RE from the dokere and we add an NS to it. All right, the present active infinitive is exactly the same as the second principal part. So I'm going to tell you, okay, do this verb dokeo, dokere, and when you get to the present active infinitive, you know it's going to be dokere. You just have to copy it down from my list. And then that would mean to do a thing, so to teach in this instance. The final form there, dokeri, again, we've just changed the final short E into a long I, dokeri. And now it means to be taught, because that's the present passive. Now, you do get some differences along the way. If you'll look at let's look at the next one, mito, mitere. That's a 3rd conjugation verb. So, mite, well, the first one works fine. I'm just taking off the RE and I get mite for send, singular. But when I go to the plural command, I would have thought it would have been mitete, ending with an ETE. But instead you get mitite. And we talked about the I up above in the present tense for this verb, and so we get the I again here. Really, this verb doesn't have a thematic vowel. It has no sort of set vowel, so the vowel just changes according to the context a lot. So mitite with an ITE. All right, then we get to the present active participle. That's normal. We would expect that. We just take the RE off of mitere, we add the NS, and we get mitens, sending. All great. Next one, the present active infinitive, mitere. We just pull it down from the second part, mito, mitere, and that works perfectly, to send. But do note I have underlined the long I at the end of miti, present passive infinitive. The reason being is that you would expect to get miteri, right? Because we're used to just changing the final E into a long I. But here, in fact, we take off ERE. right? So we take mitere, chop off the last three letters, and then we add a long I, miti, to be sent. Copio and audio, let's see, anything funky there? So copio is very similar to mito. So you got cape, but then you get capite instead of capete. With any IO verb, so copio and audio, any verb that ends in IO in that first form, you're going to have an I and an E before the NS of the present active participle. So instead of copins, you get copiens. Instead of audines, you get audiens. So copiens taking, and then present active infinitive for copere, that's normal. Present passive infinitive follows the same pattern as we saw above for mito. So you take off the ERE in copere, and you get just cop, and then you add the long I to that, and you get copy, to be taken. Yep. And then audio, you get audi, that's normal. Audite is normal. Audiens, we already talked about because it's an IO verb. Audire is normal for to hear. Audire is normal to be heard. All right, well, that explains everything you're going to see in your grammar review quiz. I hope it made sense, and I hope you get some good practice in and do well. Volete!